All right, today we're here with the Type R motor. This is the K20C1 that comes in the Civic Type R. Welcome to another episode of VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. It's a really huge motor. I'm actually installing it or testing my new kit in the 92-5 Civic, which would also work in the DC2 Integra as well as the EK. Let me just kind of go over a few things real quick. This motor's huge. We had to put a really big hole in the frame rail here. This obviously needs to be filled in afterwards so you don't have a bunch of water and junk getting up in there and causing rust and stuff like that. But that needed to be done in order to get the engine in there. I also had to trim here on the subframe. This is for the differential. And on top of that, on the differential, I changed out some of the nuts for socket head cap screws. Actually not, button head cap screws. They're a little bit lower profile. All right, so now let's look at the mounts real quick. First of all, we have the one that goes on the frame rail. I've decided to kind of triangulate it. It's really, really tall. This motor mount sits up really high. This is the mount that connects to that. So this mount will go right in there and connect to the timing chain side of the car. It'll go on the frame rail. So you will have to cut off the transmission mount on the frame. This is the transition side mount. This is our normal K series flip mount that goes in the stock bracket there on the frame rail. This reaches down to the transmission. Kind of a weird looking bracket, but again, the mounts are tall and long on this particular car. So that's the transmission mount. On the back, we have a bracket that actually attaches to the underside of the block. That goes on where the timing belt meets the transmission. Bolts on with two large 14 millimeters. This particular mount bolts on to the subframe. Very similar to what we use for our K-Series Ling kit. And then we have this torque mount that basically extends between the two of them in order to control torque. Now normally we don't use a solid one. I just happen to use this one because it's scratched up and it's something I use kind of just to try things in generally to see where it's going to sit. But anyway, we are now going to test fit these in the car and take a look at how the engine fits in there. This engine is actually really tight in here, so we've got to kind of sit it a little bit sideways to get it in. I think, yeah, keep going. Hold on. Okay.
So the secret to that bolt's to have a flex head ratchet?
Actually, the secret to this is put this on before you put it in the car and then attach the the thing. We just happen to have it. I took it out conveniently as one piece. I would suggest putting it in as two pieces. Got the left and right mounts in. Now we're going to put the rear mount in. Let's go up. Got that right. Well, this is the way the rear mount works on this. There's the mount that bolts onto the subframe. It's braced pretty heavily. Then we have the mount that bolts onto the oil pan, the rear of the block. On the Accords, the mount's actually over here. So I think that people who are getting the Accord engine are going to want to switch to this particular oil pan off the Type R. Although I may come up with a different mount that brings the bracket over on this other side here. We'll just have to see when those motors start arriving. And the other thing is, if you have a 2012 Civic SI, as I do the mounts for that, that is going to use this mount over on an oil pan over here as opposed to this mount right here. But as you can see right now, this is how the mount sits. You're not going to be able to use the power steering rack on the EG. You can use the one off the DC, but there's really no power steering pump, so you might as well just get a manual rack. This nub won't be there, so there'll be plenty of room. The other thing is probably gonna have to put some dents here in the subframe just for a little bit of clearance. I will move the engine over about another, probably about a 1/4 inch that way for the final bracket design. But here we have it. This is the Type R engine mount kit. This is what it looks like. It's going to require quite a bit of modification to get it in the car. I think the next thing to do is to get a hold of the Accord motor and start working on mounts for it in the CRZ, in the 06 Civic SI, and the 2012 Civic SI, and just kind of carry on a little bit farther. While I'm waiting for one of those Accord motors to wind up in a salvage yard so I can go grab it, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the L15B7 mounts. Now the L15B7 looks very similar to this engine, but it's actually a slightly smaller version of it, so it fits a hell of a lot better. I'm hoping that we'll be able to close the hood on that particular car. Let's look at the hood clearance. So you can see the oil pan is level with the lower subframe. As you can see by looking at the bottom of the engine, we made the oil pan exactly the same height as the subframe. And we did that because there was no way we're really going to be able to tuck this motor below the hood. So we decided to give it acceptable ground clearance. So we made it exactly the same height, which is very close to what a K series is, actually a little bit better. But let me show you what happens when we do that. Our hood doesn't really come close to closing. We've got about 4 inches, 4.5 inches from where this piece right here would normally sit down here in the hood latch. So hopefully somebody at some point is going to make a hood for this thing for people who do Type R swaps. Again, as we move on to the next one, which is the L15B7 engine into this car, we should be able to close the hood. If I have to lower the engine slightly in order to do that, I will do that. But one of the big problems is there's a lot of stuff going on over here. There's a high pressure fuel pump, there's the intake manifold, all the stuff is interfering with the head, and you can't really relocate the high pressure fuel pump. Now you're going to probably gain another inch by cutting out some of the substructure underneath the hood, but you're not really going to get enough to close the hood at all. Today we're going to work with the 2012 Civic. We've got one of those right here. We're going to use a 2006 Civic, and we're also going to try it in the first generation, actually only generation, of the Honda CRZ. By the way, the Honda CRZ's engine bay is identical to the second gen fit, so if it fits there, it's going to fit the fit too. So in order to prep the engine bay, basically we remove the subframe. We've kind of tied the hubs out of the way so they're not interfering. This engine bay has actually been stripped out. There's no brake booster or anything like that. These things don't usually interfere with our engine anyway, so I'm not particularly worried about that. What I'm curious about is the distance between the frame rails, the distance between the radiator support in the front and the firewall in the back. I'll probably slip the cowl onto it just to see what it looks like, see how far it tucks underneath. This particular car has a windscreen that really slants forward at kind of a dramatic angle. So we want to see if the engine's going to be tucked underneath or if it's going to be out in front of it. Anyway, we've got this cleared out, so let's put the motor in. So we got the engine in the car. This is basically what it's going to sit. You can see right here, normally there's a hood latch support that goes across here. It looks like it's going to clear nicely. The radiator outlet and hoses are all over here. They look like they reach normally. It nestles in between the frame rail really nicely. We'll push it over that way just a little bit. There we go. Lots of room. Well, I shouldn't say lots of room, but sufficient amount of room in between. So looking at this motor in the engine bay, it fits really nicely, and that's not at all surprising. You have to understand this engine actually came in this chassis in Europe in 2015. We've made up a couple of test mounts for putting it in the Type R. Let's go ahead and see how they fit. I mean, basically our mount is pretty much centered between the bracket holes on the transmission side. Now if we look at our mount that we've made for the engine side, once again, here are our mount holes down here for the bracket, and they're pretty much centered as well. So it looks like this is actually going to fit really nicely in this chassis. Oh, something else that's kind of interesting. If you look at the way this sits in the car, and there's normally a subframe, on the subframe right below here is the rear engine mount. It's actually attaches to the right hand side of the oil pan on the K series motor. Now I just happened to get this part the other day. Let me show you. This is the oil pan that's going to come on the new 2018 Accord with the K20. It's going to bolt in like this. You notice right here there's a place here for brackets for an engine mount that's on the right hand side. So using this oil pan with this engine, or using the Accord engine, it's going to actually fit really nicely in there. We're going to be able to make a rear mount using the stock location on the subframe in order to connect to the oil pan. So I think that's kind of cool. Obviously this Accord oil pan is the same one that came on the car in the Civic in 2015 as well. Okay, next up to bat we have the 2006 Civic SI, or so many call it the Gen 8. Now if we look down in here, it has the engine mount over on the right hand side as well. So that oil pan that we have that comes on the new Accord, came on the older Type R motor, that is going to be necessary for the swap too. We're going to pull the subframe out, get everything kind of out of the way, and check out the clearance on this one as well. But honestly, I suspect it'll be just like the 2012 was. Looks like it fits a lot like the 9th gen Civic. We see we have room between the turbo and the radiator. It probably could go back another ½ inch from here. Funny, looks like the radiator hose almost exactly lines up. I'm not really sure what's going to happen when we put the subframe on it. This engine seems to be just a smidgen taller than the K series. It's taller right here in this area right here. So that may actually be contacting a little bit, but the hood's rather thick right here, so it'd be just an easy job to go ahead and cut away some of the hood structure to get this to fit. Again, like I said before, the engine mount is on the subframe off to the side, same place it would be for the Accord motor or for the 2015 Type R motor, or this motor with that oil pan on it. But let's put our mounts in again. Put our mount in on this side. Again, the mount is almost centered perfectly between these two. Like I said, it may be able to go back about another ½ an inch. All right, let's see what happens with Roy. He's putting our other mount on. Again, that mount fits really nicely. It's fairly well centered between the bolt holes on it, and it lines up nicely to the bracket that comes off the side. So it looks like it's going to fit almost identically to what the 2012 Civic did. All right, we're on vehicle number 3 for the day. This is a 2001 Civic, actually with 2005 bodywork on it. This car's had a K series in it. It comes with a D17. This is actually a stand-in for the RSX and for the EP3 as well. Now, the engine bay is very similar in size. The RSX has slightly more room up front. The EP3 has about the same amount of room up front. The only real difference is the brackets on the frame rail are on different sides. But otherwise, this particular subframe in this car is the same as the RSX one, same as the EP3 one. We're going to try the motor in and see how it fits in there. We're actually running into a little bit of interference over here. The fuse box on this particular model is on this side. On both the EP3 and the RSX, we have, thank you, on both the EP3 and the RSX, the fuse box is over here. And actually this ABS sensor winds up being over on this side. So, like I said, we're running into a little bit of an interference problem. But we've got about 1.5 inches of room over here, and we probably have about 1 inch of overhang, so it's going to fit in fine right and left with a little rerouting of some of the wiring. It's definitely fine front to rear. I'm not totally sure how the subframe is going to fit, but we'll get to that as we start making mounts for it. But there's plenty of room forward to back, so I think it's going to fit pretty well, not only in the 01 to 05 Civic, but obviously the EP3 as well as the RSX. We need to do a little bit more work on this. One of the things I was kind of toying, or one of the ideas I was toying with, and you may have seen me mention this in one of the other videos, is to actually go in and make an adapter plate so you can use the stock K-series transmission, you know, the earlier model ones like on the RSX and stuff, with this engine. There's going to be a pile of these motors available from the Accords, because the Accord is going to come probably mostly with the 10-speed automatic transmission. And if you're like me, you're going to go, yuck, I don't want an automatic, and you're going to want to use this use some sort of a K-series transmission. These are going to be a little bit more harder to get a hold of. I'm sure everyone that gets wrecked in a salvage yard is going to wind up going in somebody's swap somewhere. I think an adapter plate would help out tremendously with swap availability. Anyway, happy to say that it fits in this as well. I actually have an RSX that we're going to be pulling the motor out of pretty soon, so I'll probably go ahead and double check it on that. But so far so good. Well guys, welcome to day 3 of Will It Fit? We got our K20C here, and today I'm going to give it a try into the EF chassis, see how it works out. This CRX actually has quite a lot of history. It's been on the cover of Sport Compact Car. It was the CRX we used in the Pinks episode. It was a season finale of season 2. It had an H22 the first time we went out, and the second time it had a B18C. Jeff Racer from Full Race ran it. That was a pretty exciting show, by the way. I believe it's on YouTube. Maybe I can dig up a link to share with you guys. Anyway, the engine bay has been modified quite a bit. The frame rail bracket's been cut off. There's a little notch in the frame rail, or in the subframe here, to kind of set the differential back a little bit further. Firewall's been pounded out for H22. All of that's not really necessary for our K20. But the radiator support's been removed here as well. That was done to make it a little bit easier to change the engine in and out on this car. May have also, oh, it was there for the intercooler. That's right, we had an intercooler placed in there. Anyway, I'm going to wheel it in here and see how it works out. All right, so I started dropping the chassis down over top of this motor, and we're winding up with contact in all sorts of places. If you look right here, this is the wastegate. It's starting to interfere with the headlamp. I actually pulled the headlamp out, and this has been trimmed for a J series, so it's obviously in the way. I don't think removing the headlight in order to install this engine is probably a good idea, but I think what might actually work is if some of the stuff was modified up here. If this intake air tube was gone, this heat shield was gone, we could actually take this wastegate, make a little piece and bolt it on here, and allow us to flip it over to the other side. If you take a look at our crate engine over here, it would be relatively easy to take this right here, make a piece that bolted on top of here, and then take this wastegate and flop it over to the other side. This water line could be rerouted easily enough. And by putting the wastegate over here, it opens up a ton of room on the front side of this motor. And that's the way that's probably what I would do in order to get this in the car. So as I start getting a hold of these motors and start actually putting them in cars and making them running, that's probably one of the things I'm going to make. I don't see it being very hard to do. The other thing is disassembling this. It might be easy enough to make something that I could just use to flop it over. Looks like there's a pin in here that sets this in. I'm not sure if this is all welded together and not disassemble, not able to disassemble it, but it would be easy enough to make something that came across, probably put a little rose weld on it to hold it in place, make a new bracket over here on the other side, base it off of the turbo flange, and we could probably make it work pretty easily. Anyway, that's something to do later on when we grab hold of one of these motors and actually install it in an EF. Beyond the problem of the wastegate, there's also about a problem with the overall dimension of this. You can see if I lower this more, our VTEC solenoid would come in contact with the frame rail. You can also see over here that the transmission is under the frame rail. So in order to really make this fit, it's going to require a modified subframe, probably a modification to the frame rail over here. That way we get the motor set up in there. It's still going to hang down quite a bit. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the CRX nose is really short compared to, let's say, an EG and EK or some of the newer chassis. Putting this motor in this car is going to be a bit of a struggle for a lot of people. But at some point, we're going to make it happen because that's what people are going to want. And I'm kind of partial to this chassis, so I wouldn't mind seeing Honda's best motor in their best chassis. All right, so we pulled in this dusty DA from outside. A lot of people were asking whether or not it fit in here, so we're going to give it a try. To me, DAs are giant CRXs. Dimensions are a little bit bigger, a little more room in the front end, a little bit more height, a little bit wider engine bay, but basically very similar to the CRX. Let's see how it fits in here. So here we have it in the DA. The much longer front end is just a huge advantage. We now no longer have a problem with the wastegate coming in contact with the headlamp. You are going to have to use a tuck radiator with this, so something that's going to go up underneath the subframe. Normally the radiator sits back here and comes back into the engine bay. The other thing is, again, there's just a pile more room. A little work on the frame rail here. If you could bring the transmission over up a little bit, that would be good. Maybe some modification of the rear subframe as well. Now, right now we have it at a height where it's going to start coming in contact with the hood, and there's not a whole lot of ground clearance. To ideally mount this engine, you'd want it up a little higher, actually, you know, kind of through the hood a little bit. That would allow you to have good ground clearance, drive around nice and safe. But I'll tell you, this compared to the EF chassis, this is a much better choice. Probably would fit a whole heck of a lot better. This makes me want to take a J series and try it in this chassis as well and see what it looks like. The modifications with the wastegate and intake air tube, that might actually allow us to bring the engine up a little bit higher without interfering with the hood. There's still a bunch of crap over here in this corner, this pollution control device, some of the hoses, but if we were able to get rid of this intake air tube, a lot of these vacuum lines would go away or would be routed over to the other side of the car and would help out a little bit with our clearance. Still, encouraging. You got a DA, this may wind up being a legit choice for you at some point. Okay, so we've got the first generation Insight here. This has a little bit taller front end than the CRX does, but it's narrower. So I'm not really sure how it's going to fit in here. Now, since height's not a problem, if we can get it in between the frame rails, that's going to be pretty nice. If you look at the way the K series fits in here, with the mount kit that Hasport will be releasing in about a month, you can get the K24 in here and you have plenty of ground clearance. I know that there is another kit out there that's been doing K-swaps for a while, but that one hangs the motor kind of low because they're not able really to get it underneath the frame rail like they should. And I think that's going to be the main problem with this K20C. If we can get it under the frame rail, we should have no problems. If we can't, then we may have to kind of drop it low, but let's give it a try and see how it works out. I am surprised. This thing fits a lot better than I thought it was going to. Obviously this bracket needs to be reconstructed. It's in completely the wrong place. That's not a big deal. Engine bay wise, the wastegate clears, the solenoid clears over here. Right now the big problem is this large welded in piece is starting to come into contact with the reverse lockout that's right below it. If there was a way to remove that and still make a mount for that side, that might be a pretty cool solution. I'm sorry, as I'm talking, my brain's figuring out how I'm going to design a mount kit for this, since I do have 3 of these cars. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. Looking at the ground clearance, it's not horrible. It's no worse than some of the K-Series cars I've seen out there driving around currently today. So, engine hangs down a little bit more than I would like it to, but I think with a little bit of creative work, I might be able to bring it up another inch, and that would be totally acceptable. Right now, this makes contact with our valve cover, but take this out, maybe some of the hood support out, you know, that would gain us that other inch we needed, and that would make it a doable swap. Huh. Call me surprised. Well, I'm thinking about trying the K20C in there, but that's actually taller than a J series. So I'm not sure how worthwhile that's gonna be. But what the hell, let's give it a try.
You guys silly? I'm still gonna send it.
At some point, I'll have to get my other Prelude out here. This particular one's a K20C4, but it does have a Type R turbo on it. So external dimensions would be the same. Push it back a little. help me throw a hood on it? Yo, I think we're hitting something. Okay, hood clearance. It definitely hangs down lower than the J did. About another inch lower than the J is. Still think I'd like a J in here.
Oh yeah.
I think I'll pass on making mounts for this particular swap. K20C in this, it's such a tall motor. I mean, I'm not sure anybody would want this to stick out of the hood, which is what you'd want to have if you wanted good ground clearance. It really would ruin the lines of a Prelude. Prelude's not like a Civic with a J sticking out of the hood. I think a J would be a much better swap in this than would be the K20C. I think we'll keep the K20C and possibly the TSX. So when I get one of those up here, I will try that in, see how it works. Thanks for joining us here on VTEC Academy. I appreciate that. If you like what you see here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. And if you click on the bell, you'll get a notification every time we come out with a new video. Also, head on over to the VTEC Academy website and show your support by buying one of our t-shirts. That helps us bring you more projects. Anyway, this has been VTEC Academy. You just got schooled.